Two guys, one accent, all of the sports. It's the Halftime Brewskis podcast. No, that's unbelievable. It was one hell of a weekend last weekend. Actually, it's been a whole roller coaster because we've seen the champions in Liverpool fall apart before our eyes in a way that we never thought would see happen, and Man City rise from the ashes. I saw that on January 20th, they were only 2 or 3 points above Man U in first and second, and come February 28th, they were 12 points clear. 12 points over the span of just a handful of games, including dominating their Champions League fixtures. We're seeing this Man City team that is unbelievable. And James, there was a question posed a couple weeks ago now. When would this Man City team lose? I don't think they're going to lose anytime soon. What do you think?
It's pretty hard to doubt them right now. They are firing on all cylinders, and they got that kind of Pep Guardiola kind of swagger back, which is something that kind of went silent last year because, Liverpool just came out kind of like a storm and
Yeah,
kind of just rolled through the
absolutely.
league last year. But, for one reason or another, whether it's injuries or kind of betting in some new players, Liverpool is just taking a step back. And Man City, it wasn't right away this season. Like, they've taken some time, and they were kind of on some kind of uneasy ground earlier in the season. But even starting probably really with that Chelsea game, they were able to just really kind of find that swagger again, and they've kind of just been rolling with it. And they look like the Man City team of old, really. So
Yeah, well, and it's not that they haven't had injuries. And I know when you talk about injuries with the Premier League this year, you have to talk about Liverpool because the reason that their title challenge has fallen apart is because they've lost Virgil van Dijk. They've now lost Jordan Henderson. They lost Diego Jota. They've lost Shaqiri for a bit. They've lost Oxlade-Chamberlain, who's coming back. They lost Allison. Like, there are a ton of injuries that have gone through. Joe Gomez, Joel Matip. Like, the list goes on for Liverpool. So that obviously is a massive indicator as to why their season is not planning out to what it is. But Man City have had their own injury struggles, and they haven't had Kevin De Bruyne for a lot of the time. They haven't had Sergio Aguero until pretty much this last weekend, where he played for a little bit in the Champions League and he played for a bit in their Premier League games this weekend. But they've still managed to make it happen. Like, Ilkay Gundogan has been fantastic and is probably, who no one expected at the start of the year, is going to be Premier League Player of the Year, or at least should be considered to be one of the Premier League Players of the Year. Phil Foden has been fantastic. Bernardo Silva has taken on a much more reserved, for him, because he's normally dribbling like crazy, much more reserved role to cover for Kevin De Bruyne. And so actually, the loss of Aguero and De Bruyne hasn't really hurt Man City all that much.
no, and Phil Foden is probably the biggest reason for that because Ilkay Gundogan, yes, has kind of been a revelation this season, but everyone kind of knew he was almost due because he
Yeah,
had so much
for sure.
talent.
Yeah.
But I
Absolutely.
would I would say the Phil Foden, that was kind of just like everyone was waiting for him to kind of get his opportunity and really kind of take it in stride. And
Yeah.
this season, he's really been a main piece in that kind of Man City side. And so that has really just been it's taken a lot of the creative pressure off of, Kevin De Bruyne. And because without Kevin De Bruyne in the past, they would kind of be lacking that kind of forward thinking pass in their midfield. And Phil
Mhm.
Foden has kind of changed that because he really can connect that midfield with that attack because they still, whether, Sergio Aguero is injured, because they've had to deal with that pretty much since he arrived in Manchester.
Yeah.
Um, they're just going to find a way to score goals, and they just have wingers who can do it and cut in from either side. And whether it's Riyad Mahrez or it's Raheem Sterling, they're always going to have that consistency on the forward side. So having that consistency when it came to playmaking, I thought was huge.
And another revelation that City have had, well, to a lesser extent, revelation, but John Stones has had a massive uptick in form. And so this has been a guy who was touted as the future John Terry, Rio Ferdinand of England's defenses, and stole games when he was at Everton as a young 19, 20-year-old, had a big move to Man City. And if you cast your mind back a couple years ago when he decided to make that move, it was right between choosing between going to Man City and going to Chelsea. and both teams were at the peak of their powers. He picked City when they were kind of on the upswing, whereas Chelsea was still dominant at that time. And he's been vindicated by winning Premier League titles and League Cup titles with them. But his play, I mean, he scored again on the weekend, and he has been fantastic. And his centre back partnership with Ruben Diaz has been phenomenal.
Ruben Diaz was kind of, in my mind at least, kind of the missing piece, because they've always kind of had one good center back, but they've really struggled to kind of replace Vincent Kompany since he left.
Yeah,
And so I thought
absolutely.
Ruben Diaz really kind of came in, because when you like rewind your mind back to the summer, they knew that they needed to completely kind of refortify that back line. And the two moves that they made were Nathan Ake and Ruben Diaz. Ruben Diaz obviously being the blockbuster because, how much he costs, 50 or 60 million pounds. So I think Ruben Diaz has really kind of been that stalwart that they kind of needed, who then kind of took a lot of pressure off of other kind of key players. But yeah, no, John Stones, it's kind of come out of nowhere, because I think a lot of people are kind of given up on him as being kind of a top flight, top kind of center back, right? Everyone
Yeah,
kind of viewed him as being decent, and he could do a job for Man City, but never kind of like what he's doing right now. And I mean, this bodes well for the
absolutely.
English national team going forward this summer, because
Yeah,
that was probably the biggest question mark for the English national team, is their center back partnership, and having a John Stones on top of the world right now is only a good thing.
yeah. That was exactly the last point I was going to make on it. Is that this is exactly when I was sad that John Stones didn't go to Chelsea, that make Chelsea better. I was really happy that he picked to go and learn and play under Pep Guardiola, because that would only make him better. We're finally seeing the fruits of our labor now. And I'd originally thought that this would be a year that a team like Chelsea could go in and swoop and steal away John Stones for £25 million, whatever it might be, a fraction of what City paid for him, and frankly, what he's playing like now. But, on his current form, there's no way that he's leaving this Man City side. There is another guy who is having a bit of a resurgence, and that is none other than one of the former most expensive players in the world, Gareth Bale, and his play at Tottenham. He's been involved in 7 of the last Tottenham goals. He has scored 4 and assisted 3 others. I mean, he scored 2 on the weekend again. And there's been a bit of a controversy throughout Bale's time at Spurs this year, because he has constantly said he's good, he's healthy, he's ready to go. Jose Mourinho has obviously not echoed that. I wonder what you think, if that's just kind of a little more of a Mourinho dynamic, whether he's just saying that to kind of cover for Gareth Bale not playing well enough. Bale's trying to, disassociate himself with the reputation he picked up at Madrid of not really being interested, or if it's just kind of clicking now, he's finally fit and it's working out well.
Bale and Mourinho in that whole Tottenham situation is like, there's so many points that you can hit on,
Yeah.
because it's a very diverse kind of relationship there. And I don't think any of us will ever know the truth on whether Jose actually wanted Gareth to come to Tottenham. Like
Yeah.
we'll never know whether
It's
that was
interesting.
a Daniel Levy move or whether that was a Jose Mourinho move. Because I think from all the points kind of point towards Daniel Levy's kind of pushing that forward
Absolutely. I think so too.
because of the business marketing opportunities that Gareth Bale kind of brings with you, and kind of the stature that he brings to Tottenham, right?
Yep.
But I think definitely, rewind it back, a month, and this relationship between Jose and Gareth looked like it couldn't have gotten any worse,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, it was
Yeah.
almost tumultuous. And so now he's kind of come into form, and he's kind of really playing where everyone thought he was going to play when they acquired him in the summer, which is that right wing, and kind of cutting in and really providing service for Kane and Son, and taking some of the creative pressure off them. I mean, I'm not going to hold my breath, because it's Gareth Bale and he's probably going to pick up an injury and it's probably not going to last. But I mean, this is everything that Tottenham fans have been wanting for and holding their breath for, and really
Yeah.
thought they were going to get when they brought him in the summertime. But I'm just going to leave it to Jose to mess it up somehow.